Is materiality the foundation of successful design? And how do materials sit at the intersection of innovation and sustainability? What role do they play in creating future-centric, long-lasting, tactile spaces? That's what we're here today to discuss in this mixed roundtable with Impact Acoustic.
Thinking about all of our senses when we are designing a space is an absolute must. There is no way that a person can be their complete and natural self if somehow one of the senses is deprived.
I think by considering all of the senses, you can create a successful design because it's not just this focus on the visual, but rather a combination of the senses.
I think what's also really important is thinking how people are going to interact with that space. Is it a transitional space? Is it something you're going to spend around time in? And which senses are heightened or impacted by what you do in that space? Making sure it's a space that speaks to people in different ways, I think is really important.
Someone's ugly can be someone else's beautiful. Someone's functional can actually be not functional or relevant for someone else. In the end, it's really about the product and whether it's fit for purpose.
I'd like to think we are past the point of thinking that functional products are ugly. I mean, the reality is there's always going to be an element of something that is a little bit more utilitarian or just does the job. But it's always nice to think when you've got the time and the space to create and think about things that you can come up with something that is beautiful and functional at the same time.
The notion that something is ugly because it's functional, I think, is inherently flawed. Materiality in architecture and interior architecture really matters. If it's a very hard material and you're creating a space where you want someone to be very calm or you need it to have softness, you're not going to do that. So there's a right balance between the material which is being used and the function of the space.
Well, for me, I sort of drifted into interiors from architecture, and it was based on an interest in materiality. So when I design, it's the first thing I think of. It's my absolute favorite element is to consider what materials are and how they go together and how they come apart. So for me, it's sort of impossible to separate the design from the material or the form from the material.
Materiality, I think, is important. If for me personally, because I'm a very kind of tactile person, and bringing in different textures and materials makes the space really interesting. Also, it doesn't necessarily mean that's lots of colour. Nice, muted, neutral palettes, but with lots of different texture, add a lot of interest and can create a space that's really important and interesting.
There's nothing in design if there isn't materiality considered, right? I mean, any surface is a material. So if you don't consider the properties of that material, you can't design. And if you don't really understand material, then you can push it to its limits or beyond.